Alright guys, I'm not gonna lie, there's been a bit of a content drought this week. For some reason, influencers and YouTubers decided not to get in any drama at all, but I've got something that I need to talk about. Something that will either seriously confuse you or seriously blow your mind. Did you know that not everyone has an inner monologue? Like, they cannot think using words. Ever since I heard about this, I literally ask everyone if they have an inner monologue or not. Though, not like right away, because it'd be a bit weird if I was talking to someone at a bar and I started the convo with, "Hey guys, I'm MattyO, what's your name? And also, can you think using words?" It just blows my mind so much when somebody tells me that they can't, that they don't have an inner monologue, they can't think in words. I talked about it so much that my friends all are sick of hearing about it from me, so I hope you guys are ready to indulge me because I have nobody else to talk about it with. And just as a little disclaimer, I'm not making this to dunk on anyone or judge anyone whether or not they have an inner monologue. I'm just generally really amazed by the vastness of human experience, and I really need to make other people aware of this because it is crazy to think about. Now, I know this can be a very confusing topic to talk about, especially if you don't have an inner monologue and you're just learning right now that other people do. So I guess it's best that I try to explain how I think. I guess a better way to put that would be how I experience consciousness, but that sounds just a tiny bit too pretentious for me. So basically, throughout the day, I'd say that 90% of my thoughts are in the form of an inner monologue, like I speak to myself in my head. The other 10% would be more thinking in images. Of course, there's caveats to that. Some thoughts or feelings don't really fit into either one of those categories, but my point is that most of my thoughts are in the form of speech to myself within my head, an inner monologue. Of course, I'm not really counting feelings as thoughts because I think they're more of like an abstract concept than a thought, right? Because you can have a thought that makes you feel sad, it makes you experience an emotion like sadness or happiness, which kind of implies that feelings and thoughts are completely different things, at least in my mind. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense because it's really hard to explain abstract concepts like this, and I'm a YouTuber and not a philosopher. But I always thought for the majority of my life that everyone thought the same way as me, like physically thought, until 2020-ish when I scrolled into a Twitter thread with someone saying that they were freaking out because they had just found out that some people can think in words, which shocked me as a mostly word thinker that other people don't think in words. So I started asking people around me, and I haven't really conducted this in a scientific way, but about 1 out of every 4 people I ask will tell me that they have no form of internal monologue. That's right, 25% of people, 1 in 4. Isn't that crazy? 25% of the human population, at least in my unscientific study, do think in a way that I can barely conceptualize. They're experiencing existence in a fundamentally different way from the way that I do, and I never would have known if it wasn't for some random person talking about it on Twitter. So please, if you haven't already, let me know in the comments if you have an inner monologue or not. I want to see if the 25% thing holds up. Now, of that 75% of people who do have an inner monologue, the amount of inner monologue they have seems to be different for just about everyone. Some people will tell me that they have an inner monologue basically all the time, whereas some people say that they'll only experience it while reading or when they really focus on forming words in their heads. So among the people that I thought would have thought in a similar way to me, there's differences in how we think and how we experience things. It's like no one experiences consciousness in the same way, and literally nobody talks about this, despite the fact that every single time I think about it, I find myself in an existential crisis. But what really interests me is the people who don't have an inner monologue, because it's just such an alien concept to me that I can't stop myself from asking questions. Now, of course, it's really hard to describe abstract concepts like thought, so I'm going to try to explain to you guys what they've explained to me, but it might get a bit confusing, so don't hold that against me. One guy I know told me that he thinks mostly in images and colors, but a lot of his thoughts are more like modern art than actual images, so I guess like blurs of color and images together. And that blur of color and images that he sees are how he interprets the world, like how he thinks, which is crazy different from how I experience things. A girl I knew described her thoughts as more like a river, with images and stuff flowing constantly through her mind, and the emotions or feelings attached to those images are how she forms complex thoughts, which is just so different from anything I've ever thought about, right? Then the strangest of all to me was this one guy who told me that he doesn't think in images either. No inner monologue, no images, just feelings. Like he can't think in words, he can't think in pictures, he literally is just vibing his way through life, which is just so fundamentally different to everything that I've ever experienced. It never ceases to break my brain when I think about it. And just to mention, all these people are perfectly average dudes and dudettes, living their lives, being functional members of society. You never would know that they have a different type of conscious thought system than you do if you didn't ask. Literally everybody thinks in a different way. But then we get into the metaphysical questions about this. Like, try to imagine where you as a being exist, where your conscious thought occurs. Where do you reside within your body? This question only really makes sense if you have a separation of the body and mind in concept, because I personally believe that the body and mind are two different things. And for me, it's fairly easy to point to where my center of being is. It's in the center of my head, somewhere behind my eyes, because that's where my thoughts exist, if they were to occupy physical space or something. And most people I ask say the same thing, that they experience a center of being behind their eyes or somewhere in their head. Even people who don't have an inner monologue will say the same thing, so it's not different there. But sometimes you'll get somebody that has a wild card answer to this. I know at least one person who told me that they can't really pick a point where they as a conscious mind exist within their body, rather describing their mind as something that occupies their entire body. And there's been other people who explain something kind of similar, but pretty much the same, where they can kind of pinpoint where their thoughts are, but sometimes it changes around in their body, which is just very different from what I experience. And a lot of these people also, if you don't have the ability to find a center of being, you tend not to think of your mind and body as different entities, at least from the people I've asked. They'll always say that their mind and body are one being, basically. And I have no idea if I'm explaining this right. Again, I'm a YouTuber, not a philosopher. For me, when I think about it, right, when I think about my body, my mind, and everything, I see a separation between my body and my mind, and possibly my soul as well. The soul and mind might be the same thing. I have no idea. That's a religious question that's way outside the purview of this video. I think that there's a difference between my mind and my body, and these people don't, which when you think about it, do you think that you have a difference between your mind and body in like what they are? Can you separate your mind from your body when you think about it? Like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, but if you get it, you're gonna get it. Like, they exist as one person in the physical world, right? You are one person. But when I think about it, my body is in the world and my mind is what's controlling my body, if that makes it any clearer, which it probably doesn't, to be honest. And I can't really help but think, what causes this? Why does everybody have a different way of thinking? You know, is it the way that I was brought up? I was brought up in a Catholic household, so I always had the concept of a soul, right? And the soul being different from your body, which from that is not a far drift from your mind being separate from your body. But I don't know that it would be different if I wasn't Catholic. I mean, I'm pretty sure I thought the same way before I ever went to CCD, so I don't really know, right? And as an aside, when I was a kid growing up, right, I went to college, and when I was at college, I met somebody for the first time who didn't believe in the existence of a human soul, and that shocked me too. Like, because throughout my entire life, I met people, and pretty much everybody I've ever met, whether they be Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, even atheist, they all will always say that there's something to us that's not physical. But when I was in college, I met somebody for the first time that didn't believe in the existence of a soul, and that blew my mind, because I never really considered it. I always considered the soul as something that everybody knows that they have, that they think that they have, but for some reason this person didn't. It's just another thing that was fundamentally different that, you know, makes you reassess your worldview and how other people go through life, right? And all this stuff always gets me thinking about the saying from hundreds of years ago, cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Everyone thinks, therefore everyone is, but we all experience thought in different ways. Does that mean that how I am, as my existence, is different from others in some fundamental way? That because we experience consciousness in such different ways, we may as well be alien to each other? I don't know, because when you think about it further, we all exist, clearly. We all live, we all drive cars, we all hold down jobs, we all have relationships, we all get sad, we all are, and we all someday won't be. So does it even matter how we experience things? Does it matter that we think differently from one another in this fundamental way? I'm not sure. I'm no philosopher, and I'm sorry if I've given you a little bit of existential dread, but I do like to think about this from time to time, because the fact that other people think in ways that are just completely alien to your own worldview, the fact that fundamentally they don't have an inner monologue, or if you don't have an inner monologue, that you're finding out fundamentally that I do have an inner monologue, and that's such an alien concept, right? Finding out that somebody thinks in a way that you can't conceptualize is so fundamentally strange to you, right? When you think about it, I can't wrap my head around it, right? How do you conceptualize something that you will never experience? It's just one of those things. I don't think that we could ever really conceptualize it. Everybody thinks in a different way, and some of you in the comments are going to tell me that you don't have an inner monologue. And what does that mean? How do I conceptualize that? How do I think the way that you think? The best way that we can describe it is with words, right? Like people saying that they think in colors, or they think in rivers of thought or emotion. But how do you exist as a conscious being like that? It's just something that I can't figure out. And if you're on the opposite end, you're going to think, man, that guy thinks in words? That's lame. What's he doing? That word thinker? And you're going to be like, I can't think in words. That sounds boring. Monotone words, you know? If you're on one side, you will never be able to understand the other side, because as far as I know, there's no way to turn off an inner monologue forever and fundamentally shift the way that you exist in the world. And honestly, I don't think I'd want to, because I'm pretty used to living the way I do. I really do want to hear from you guys down in the comments about your experience. I know this really isn't a typical MattyO video, because I usually focus on YouTube drama, so I would be interested to hear your thoughts on throwing in a video like this on something that really interests me every once in a while when there's not much else to talk about. So please do tell me down in the comments if you are an inner monologue haver or not. Thank you so much for watching. I hope I blew your mind. Have a great day, and God bless you.